Ukraine has blown up Putin's oil pipeline in the Moscow region. Pentagon green lights, providing Ukraine with Tomahawks. Meanwhile, President Trump still hesitates to do so. What is known about recent Ukrainian strikes on Russia, and why is this more effective than Western sanctions? Ukraine has conducted two major strikes on Russian energy grid in recent days, hitting a fuel pipeline near Moscow and key oil terminal at the Black Sea port of Tuapse. Ukrainian intelligence and military sources describe attacks as significant in growing campaign aimed at disrupting Russia's energy. The first strike occurred late on October 31st, 2025, when explosions were reported along the Ring oil pipeline in the Romansky district of Moscow, roughly 40 kilometers southeast of the Russian capital. According to Ukrainian military intelligence, the operation simultaneously disabled all three major fuel lines of the system, those carrying gasoline, diesel and aviation fuel. Ukrainian officials said the pipeline is a vital part of Russia's military logistic connecting all regions. The 400-kilometer-long pipeline is estimated to move up to 3 million tons of aviation fuel, 2.8 million tons of diesel and 1.6 million tons of gasoline. In a statement, Ukraine describes strike as a serious blow to Russia's military logistics and have a greater impact than economic sanctions. Ukrainian officials claim the attack succeeded despite Russia's deployment of anti-drone systems and armed guards along the pipeline corridor. However, analysts note that if the Ukrainian claims are accurate, the attack would represent one of Ukraine's deepest and most disruptive strikes inside Russian territory to date. Just a day later, in the early hours of November 1st, Ukraine launched a large-scale drone assault on Tuapse oil terminal in Krasnodar Krai, on major export port on the Black Sea. According to sources, 5 separate drone impacts were recorded at the terminal. The attack reportedly set a tanker on fire and disabled at least 4 piers used for loading and uploading fuel shipments. Several port buildings also sustained damage. The terminal, operated as part of Russia's commercial seaport infrastructure, plays a significant role in exporting oil products around the globe. Ukrainian officials frame strike as a part of coordinated effort to degrade Russia's ability to generate war revenues. Local Russian social media channels posted footage of explosions and fires visible from several miles away. Russian emergency services later confirmed a fire at the port. There were no official reports of casualties. Ukrainian intelligence characterized the Tuapse operation as a joint SSU and armed forces strike, emphasizing that it demonstrated Ukraine's ability to hit critical infrastructure along the Black Sea coast. Russian government has not issued official statement about the attack. Disabling multiple loading piers and damaging a tanker at one of Russia's major export terminals would disrupt shipments and force the diversion of oil exports to alternate facilities. The two attacks, one deep in the Russian heartlands, the other at the critical maritime export hub, mark a growing pressure from Ukraine's campaign deep inside Russia. Kyiv said such strikes are intended to weaken Moscow's ability to fund and supply its war effort, particularly in response to Russian missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities and energy infrastructure. Both operations were notable for their timing and targets. Striking the Ring pipeline near Moscow struck at the logistical core of Russia's military fueling network, while the attack on Tuapse hit one of the country's most important export terminals on the Black Sea. Together, they underscore Ukraine's growing long-range strike capabilities and its strategic shift toward undermining Russia's economic and logistical infrastructure rather than focusing on battlefield. Western analysts say the strikes fit into a broader pattern of Ukraine's long-range attacks against Russia's energy, which intensifies this year. Kyiv has relied on domestically produced drones to target refineries, oil depots, and logistical checkpoints, arguing that such attacks are legitimate responses to Russia's bombardment of Ukrainian infrastructure. The full extent of the damage from the Kulsevoy and Tuapse strikes remains to be seen, but both operations signal that Ukraine is capable of reaching deeper into Russian territory and that Russia's critical energy assets are becoming harder to defend. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has determined that supplying Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles would not deplete US stockpiles, clearing a key logistical hurdle and putting decision into the hands of President Trump, CNN reported Friday. The internal assessment delivered to the White House in early October this year concluded that US military could transfer Tomahawks to Ukraine without compromising Americans' own defense requirements. However, according to CNN, President Trump has not yet approved the move and has expressed hesitation about providing the advanced systems to Ukraine. CNN reports that President Trump privately told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during a recent meeting that US doesn't want to be giving away things that we need to protect our own country. While Pentagon has now cleared the way for a potential transfer, CNN says final call rests entirely with Trump, who has been weighing both military and diplomatic implications. The network notes that Trump initially indicated openness to the idea earlier this fall, telling aides the US has a lot of Tomahawks and could consider supplying them, but his tone shifted following a conversation with Russian dictator Putin, after which he voiced concerns about maintaining sufficient US reserves. According to CNN's reporting, while stockpiles concerns have been resolved, there are still operational issues that would need to be addressed before any deployment. Tomahawk missiles are launched from the US Navy ships or submarines. US officials and defense experts told CNN that any transfer would likely require land-based launchers such as US Army's Typhoon system or other launch platforms developed by Marine Corps. Even if US does not supply launchers, European officials told CNN they believed Ukraine could adapt systems independently, citing previous success integrating Ukraine-made Storm Shadow missiles. Tomahawk long-range precision-guided cruise missiles with a range of roughly 1,000 miles would give Ukraine a capability to strike targets deeper inside Russia than any systems it currently possesses. According to CNN, European officials have described potential transfer as a shift in Ukraine's ability to hit Russian logistic hubs, command center, and energy infrastructure supporting Moscow war effort. However, the decision remains politically sensitive. President Trump has expressed skepticism about military aid to Ukraine and has urged European allies to take larger share of the burden. CNN notes that his aides have advised caution, warning that providing Tomahawk could be seen by Moscow as a major escalation. European partners, meanwhile, reportedly welcomed Pentagon's green light assessment, viewing it as removing a major obstacle to approval. Several NATO officials told CNN the move would demonstrate US renewed willingness to help Ukraine counter Russian long-range missile attacks on Ukrainian cities. CNN's report emphasized that despite Pentagon's clearance, no final decision has been made and no formal transfer has been authorized. Key issues remain whether US would provide complete missile systems or limited number for testing, how Ukraine would deploy the missiles without US naval platforms, and what restrictions Washington might impose on how and where Kyiv could use weapons. CNN sources said Pentagon's analysis focused on availability and readiness rather than a strategic policy debate, which continues inside White House. According to CNN, the move to clear Tomahawk's transfer reflects Pentagon's growing confidence in Ukraine's ability to operate such systems and its recognition that Kyiv faces mounting pressure to strike Russian targets that are fueling the war effort. The assessment also follows months of lobbying by Ukrainian officials for longer-range strike capabilities. Ukraine argues that existing Western supply systems such as Storm Shadow or ATACMS have been effective but are limited in range and payload. CNN report underscores that even if the transfer approved, Operational deployment could take months. Training, integration, and command and control protocols would have to be developed before the missile could be used in combat. Defense analysts cited by CNN say Tomahawk's potential transfer would represent one of the most significant shifts in U.S. military support to Ukraine since the beginning of full-scale invasion. The Tomahawk is not just a weapon, it's a strategic tool, one senior European defense official told CNN. If Washington approves this, it signals that Russia's rare air sanctuaries are no longer safe. Still, with President Trump holding the final decision, it remains unclear whether weapons will actually be transferred or remain on standby. As of early November, CNN reports the White House had not issued any new directive authorizing the delivery. However, just recently, President Trump still said that he would not provide Ukraine with Tomahawks, at least yet. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine.